that model work, or how quickly can I get out of here? Well, in fact, I would argue, and when we get to question and answers, I'll actually debate with anybody, the single categorical success of labor organizers of my generation over the last 30 or 40 years has in fact been successfully creating unionization among informal workers that were home-based. Home healthcare workers and home daycare workers. And those two categories of workers joined, often in drives led by ACORN, led by even the United Labor Unions, which became later part of SEIU, sometimes not. We got SEIU, not only SEIU, but AFSCME, CWA, AFT to all join us in drives around home daycare aids. The single largest election in New York in the last 50 years was one we ran for the AFT, and one with 45,000 home daycare workers that are now under contract. So can it work? Yes, it works among informal workers in certain situations. But it depended on an old school strategy, which is not popular. And that's one where members actually have to create an organization, pay dues, and support the organization during the organizing, sometimes, frankly, for years. And at the point they build enough power and traction, then they're able to think about representing other workers. Eventually, at that point, they have enough density within that job classification, within that situation. They can talk about entitlements, which may be benefits, or even contractual guarantees. One of the best examples might be one of our UIU unions started in 1984, had 0 members in Chicago among home health care workers, and now has 80,000 members. But it took 12 years for Local 880 to get any sort of agreement or understanding or even checkoff for a lot of those workers. So it's a disciplined, committed model that believes that worker strength plus political power, operating in other words in the community as well as in the workplace, can deliver actual organizing victories. And those victories come when the strength of the organization is such that it can create workplace power. Not political deals. Where you have political deals without workplace strength and worker strength, you couldn't maintain those victories in many cases. But as a model, one could argue that majority union, both in the public sector, among school teachers, in the AAFT, often for decades, worked as membership-only organizations before they were ever able to represent workers in a formal way. And in the private sector, I think we've proven over and over again it can work. But if this was our biggest success, this half million members, why is this not currently the dominant organizing model among unorganized workers? I could say, damned if I know. But unfortunately, I actually do know. Unions, and I may be contradicted later, are political institutions. And by that I mean their leadership is elected not by unorganized workers, but by existing dues-paying members of the union. So whether we talk about direct elections like the Teamsters or conventions like SEIU, it's still a membership-based electoral system. It's a political system. And unfortunately in organizing, it means that you have to solve this problem that existing dues-paying members who care about their job, their services, their contract, have to be asked to finance non-paying unorganized workers in the existing model, because the assumption is that you don't ask an unorganized worker to pay dues. Now, I don't know why that assumption is the case. It's totally different than what I've argued about majority unionism, but that is the standard operating procedure and model at this point. The differences, the only examples of this being tried differently, or there are a couple. When John Sweeney was elected president of the AFL-CIO in 1996, they started a program that tried to look at how to expand what we've done in home health care particularly, and look at geographically based organizing that combined powerfully worker-student alliances. It's just an SDS for a second. That combined worker-community alliances in a federated way. One campaign was the Gulf Coast Mariners, the biggest unorganized section of seafaring workers. Didn't work out so well. There's another that I directed called the Hot Rock Campaign to organize the dominant industry in New Orleans, hospitality workers. The victories in that campaign before 9/11, when financing disappeared in that industry, were winning representation for convention center workers. There's a big march, painting down of a march we did down in Mount Street. And I wasn't going to say this, but John mentioned this building right here is now the Lowe's Hotel, which is the only union hotel in the city of New Orleans now, post-Katrina. We organized that hotel, and that used to be the Likes building, which you were asking about before. And I heard Likes has quite a illustrious history here. But now it's somehow, proper testimony, a good gravestone formed in New Orleans because the one union hotel is there. So we tried that under Sweeney, and then more recently, the big effort was to say, there's this company called Walmart. Turns out to be good. In fact, it's the biggest private sector company in the world. More than 2 million workers in the world, million and change here. I hate to tell you, particularly you young folks who are, still in school or immediate graduates, the odds that some of you have either worked for Walmart in the past, or are working for Walmart now, or will work for a Walmart in the future, are really excellent. Okay, take your name off the list. But figure it out. If there's 100 and something million private sector workers, and if you're employing, 1% of those, that's a major employer. Well, it's also true around the world. Walmart is the largest private sector employer in all of North America, in Canada, in the United States, in Mexico, quickly becoming so in Argentina, Peru. I see them everywhere I go. Well, there are 2,500 stores, million-something workers, so the strategists and leaders of organized labor realize there's no existing model we have. It's an LRB base that you could possibly, it took a while to realize this. They tried to organize them store by store by store, but that didn't work out. They organized a store, Walmart would disappear, the whole butchery in every store in the country. They would try to organize a store in Montreal, and they just closed the store. So it just wasn't working out for them in the classic LRB-based model. So they said, essentially, what do we have to lose? Let's try this majority union strategy, because maybe that would work. So they came to us, and we went to Florida. Picked 20 counties in central Florida, running up the corridor there between Orlando and Tampa, St. Pete. I think both central Florida feels a lot like this. We had a three-pronged strategy. The first was to build a community labor alliance we call the Walmart Alliance for Reform Now. The name, I don't know where that name came from. And what we did, though, successfully in a 4.5-year period, is stopped every single superstore that Walmart proposed to build in that geographical area. 33 straight stores, by building deep enough community organization around that campaign that they didn't want Walmart to come into that area. Wherever it was, upper income neighborhood, lower income neighborhood, whatever it was, we beat them. And at the time we were running this campaign, 3% of Walmart's revenue came from these 20 counties. So Florida was a big market for them. One of the first ones we went, actually, we stopped building of a store in Wetlands in St. Petersburg. Turns out there were some people who cared about the environment too. You never know where you're going to find it online. The second thing we said, well, let's, contrary to popular belief that they're all too afraid, they'll never do anything, let's see what happens if you actually ask Walmart workers if they'd like to join some kind of Walmart Worker Association and pay dues and support that organization, elect leaders, build strength at their stores, deal with grievances. But from the very second we signed them up, we told them we would never file for an election. at the Labor Board, and that this was absolutely and categorically not about getting a collective bargaining agreement. If you want to get a collective bargaining agreement, they needed to go speak that language in some other country. If they wanted to have an election to NLRB, we were never going to do that. So would workers under that crazy kind of proposition join? Well, it turned out that 1,000 Walmart workers joined the association in less than 6 months. In fact, of all the years I've run union drives, we had a better success rate in a home visit of doing the visit to having someone sign up and join the union and pay dues than any other union organizing drive I've done. So there was powerful demand from Walmart workers.